The Solitary Current, a Sigma woman's journey. Elara Rivers moved through the world like water around stone, flowing her own path, reshaping boundaries when necessary, yet remaining fundamentally unchanged by the obstacles she encountered. At 35, she had built a life that many found difficult to understand, but that brought her a deep, unwavering contentment. Dawn found Elara already awake, sitting cross-legged on her balcony overlooking the city. The apartment was on the 18th floor of a renovated industrial building, high enough to escape the noise, but close enough to remain connected to the urban rhythm below. This middle ground characterized much of how she positioned herself in life, adjacent to society, but never fully immersed in its currents. She sipped black coffee from a handmade ceramic mug, a gift from an artisan she'd befriended during her 3-month solo trek through the Andes. Travel was one of her few indulgences, always undertaken alone, with minimal planning and maximum flexibility. Her colleagues at the architectural firm where she worked as a senior designer often marveled at her confidence in navigating foreign countries unaccompanied. "Aren't you afraid?" they would ask. Elara would smile slightly and respond, "Being alone isn't the same as being vulnerable." After her morning meditation, Elara changed into running clothes and headed to the trail that wound along the river. She preferred to run at dawn when she could claim the path for herself, her footfalls matching the rhythm of her thoughts. Running wasn't social exercise for her. It was moving meditation, a time to process complex design problems or personal questions without interruption. Today, she was mentally reimagining the community center project her team had been struggling with for weeks. While her colleagues debated endlessly in meetings, Elara had been quietly developing an alternative approach. She didn't participate much in the group brainstorming sessions. The performance aspect of collaboration drained her. Instead, she absorbed information, processed it privately, and emerged with solutions when they were fully formed. Back home, she showered and dressed with practical elegance. Tailored black pants, a crisp white shirt, minimal jewelry. Her appearance, like her apartment, reflected her values. Quality over quantity, function informing form, nothing extraneous. She maintained a capsule wardrobe long before it became fashionable, seeing no purpose in spending mental energy on daily clothing decisions. Before heading to the office, she texted her mother, "Dinner Thursday?" Their weekly meals were a constant in Elara's carefully structured life. While she maintained few close relationships, those she did cultivate were deep and enduring. Her mother had raised her alone, teaching her early that self-sufficiency was not just a virtue, but a necessity. "The world is full of people who will disappoint you," she had told a teenage Elara. "Learn to be complete on your own, and others become a choice rather than a need." At work, Elara's reputation preceded her. New employees were quickly informed, "If you want honest feedback without sugarcoating, go to Elara. If you want someone to hold your hand, look elsewhere." Her directness was mistaken for coldness by some, but those who worked closely with her recognized it was simply efficiency. She didn't waste words or emotions on professional matters, saving her depth for what truly deserved it. In the conference room, her team was presenting their concepts to the client. Elara sat slightly apart, observing more than participating. The client, a community foundation director with political ambitions, was clearly dissatisfied with the conventional approaches being suggested. "These all look like standard community centers," he said dismissively. "We need something that makes a statement." After the others had spoken, Elara opened her tablet and slid it across the table without commentary. On it was a rendering of her alternative design, a building that seemed to emerge organically from the landscape, with gardens that doubled as outdoor classrooms and water features that served both aesthetic and functional purposes. "This," the client said, looking up at her, "this is what we want." Her colleagues weren't surprised that Elara had developed something independently, nor that she had waited to present it. It was her way, observing from the periphery, then stepping in decisively when the moment was right. After work, Elara declined invitations to celebrate the project advancement. Office happy hours held no appeal. The forced socialization and predictable conversations about weekend plans and television shows exhausted her. Instead, she visited a small art gallery opening where she could appreciate creativity while engaging with others on her own terms, selectively and purposefully. At the gallery, she recognized the photographer whose work was being featured. They had briefly dated the previous year. Their parting had been amicable. Elara had simply been transparent that while she enjoyed his company, she wasn't interested in the kind of relationship he ultimately wanted. "The traditional relationship escalator isn't for me," she had explained. "I value my solitude too much to compromise it." He spotted her now and approached with a warm smile. "I used some of the techniques you suggested," he said, gesturing to a series of architectural photographs. "They're selling better than anything else." Elara nodded, genuinely pleased. "You found the right balance between structure and organic form." Their conversation flowed easily, unencumbered by expectations or regrets. When she left an hour later, they parted with the comfortable understanding of two people who respected each other's boundaries. Evening found Elara in her apartment, the space illuminated by carefully positioned lamps that created pools of warm light amid deliberate shadow. She prepared a simple but perfect meal, fresh ingredients transformed with practiced skill. Cooking for herself was never an afterthought, but a daily act of self-respect. As she ate at her small table overlooking the now illuminated city, she reviewed the day's victories and challenges in her journal. The writing wasn't for anyone else's eyes. It was her way of processing, learning, and then releasing the day. Later, she picked up her cello, an instrument she had taught herself to play in her 20s. The rich tones filled her apartment as her fingers moved with practiced precision. Music was her most intimate form of expression, something she rarely shared with others. She didn't play to perform or impress. She played because it fulfilled something essential within her. Before sleep, Elara stood at her window, watching the city below. People often misunderstood her self-contained nature as loneliness or detachment. But standing there, she felt a profound connection, not just to individual people, but to humanity in its collective complexity. She simply experienced this connection differently, preferring to observe the pattern rather than becoming entangled in it. As she turned from the window, Elara felt the satisfaction that came from living authentically. Her path was solitary by design, not by default. A conscious choice to move through life according to her own internal compass rather than society's prescribed routes. In a world that often equated a woman's worth with her connections to others, Elara's deliberate self-reliance wasn't just a lifestyle, it was a quiet revolution.